Ownership a primer. If ever a lie was told by the devil, it was told about ownership. The truth is, no one can justify owning what they did not create. Authorship is the only valid grounds for ownership, though an argument can be made for gifting as a way to own something, downstream from the creator. People know this, but they are faced with a conundrum. Not one human has added one atom to what exists. Not one army, organization, nation, monarch, genius or fool has created anything natural or added anything to what was already created. We add value to creation, but we do not add to creation. Therefore, the inconvenient truth is, no one has a right to any part of creation. You can say God created the universe, or it all exploded into being, it changes nothing. Not all the power in the universe is enough to give you a right to claim any part of the natural world. Which as to natural law or the law of the jungle, there is no jurisprudence that can validate any land claim. Regardless of if your peoples have occupied a place for 10,000 or 10 years, time does not result in the validation of any land claim. There are no squatters' rights in nature. There is the law of the jungle that states if you have the power to protect it, you have the right to administrate it. But this is just a right that exists until someone stronger comes and invalidates it. God created the universe, our settlement of some insignificant portion of it does not give us any right. Let's agree that your ancestors settled the land 10,000 years ago. How does your presence or the presence of your ancestors take from God his rights? Indeed, what have you and yours done in 10,000 years but exist as parasites? What have you done for God to warrant the expropriation of his land? If land belongs to God, he can give it to whom he chooses. If God does not own the land, then no one owns it, and anyone with a bigger gun can come take what he wants. No matter how you arrange it, no man has a right to the physical world, other than a right given to him out of the barrel of a gun. The morality of nature only knows raw power. Might makes right, in the end justifies the means. No matter how long a people could stave off competition, the land only belongs to them until the stronger group comes along. There is no finders keepers in nature. Keep it until someone takes it from you. There is only the law of nature, or there is the law of God. There is no other option. There are many religions, but in the end they all rely on the law of nature. There are many states and governments that issue law. All law rests on the law of nature. One version of this is might makes right, in the end justifies the means. But another version of this is, obey, or die. The law without the ability to enforce it, is mere opinion. The law is nothing more than opinion formulated into a regulation by an authority with the power to enforce the regulation. The state needs a monopoly on power to enforce its laws. The state assumes the role of nature. The laws of the government are the equivalent to the laws of nature. The government would like them to have the same force, but they must resort to more prosaic means to maintain order. The laws of nature are integral to the system God created. Gravity works without a means of enforcement. It is much different with the state that must expend a great deal of energy and resources enforcing its laws. Which brings us to the real problem. We demonstrated no one owns nature but the Creator. If you do not believe in God, then you can truncate the statement to, no one owns nature. It really does not make much difference. The point is, we have governments who make laws and seek to enforce them, but must seek the power to do this, externally. The state does not have the means to enforce its laws from any internal means. But there are only two sources of power, the self, or what others product. And since the state produces nothing but laws it cannot enforce by its own agency, it has to use force to extort resources from external sites. The state can claim part of the planet as its domain. If it has the army and the organizational skills, it can do this. But it cannot justify it other than through reference to the law of the jungle. If we all worked and we all paid our own way, there would be no crime and no need for the state or its laws. The state did it because it wanted an excuse to levy the cost of its existence. The state cannot form, or function, unless it has access to the wealth we create. This is one problem, but there is another. We do not need the state unless we also want to live as a parasite. The state does not like the market nor anyone who lives according to the mechanisms of the market. The clientele of the state is those who want to live off of others. In other words, every government is tacitly or overtly communistic. There cannot be a government without communist leanings. The very nature of the state is communistic. Without a sense that everything is free for the taken or owned commonly, there could not be a state. Behind every state is the assumption that the state and its allies have a right to access everything that exists. Those who produce the wealth do not believe this, but those who look for ways to justify freeloading reject the concept of private property. Everything is to some degree public. The state, therefore, has to access the wealth of the market to pay its own costs and to justify its existence. The only people the state can help is freeloaders, and the only way it can help them is by expropriating wealth from the most productive. The most productive do not need the state, but the state needs the productive to pay the costs of the worst parasite so it can have a purpose for existing. In other words, a state cannot exist that recognizes the existence of God. A state cannot give God his due as creator, and still remain in existence. The state is not compatible with the church, and the church is the only feasible way to recognize the position of God as the owner of the universe. The state is also incompatible with the free market. Indeed, communism invalidates the market. As said, the state must, to some degree, implement a communist system to exist and validate itself through the creation of social agendas. The free market, to operate as an unregulated market, must separate out owners. Only owners must be paid, and only paid. Anyone who is paid for what they did not do is a parasite, because the wealth must come from somewhere and from someone. Which means someone got robbed of what rightfully belonged to them in order to support the state and its social policy. We cannot have the free market and the state, nor can we have the church and the state. The church and the free market are eminently compatible. They are indeed conceptual equivalents. This claim is not difficult to establish. We either get paid for what we do, or we are exploited. The state must exploit labor to exist. The church, on the other hand, is not parasitic. This stealing from God and exploiting man is the epitome of evil. All evil consists in stealing what belongs to God. All sin destroys what had value in us. Sin deprives others of value. The market can separate out the value that belongs to God and the value that belongs to labor. It is by doing this that the church is made manifest. The church is the owner of record. The church, as the representative of Christ on earth, holds the assets of earth in trust. The Christian works for the church and is paid for the work he or she does. This is the simple solution to the state. It creates a free market, and it eliminates the state. Using this business model also builds the church through works of faith. By eliminating the state, we eliminate all of the issues created by the state. These 10 great evils are all created by the state but eliminated by the market. Unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and crime are all products or symptoms of government avarice. They do not exist in a free market. Pollution, for example, is just a cost externalized onto society and future generations. There is no need for it. In conclusion, all that needs to be done to create a free market is to eliminate free riding. All it takes to make this happen is to make the church a trustee of what belongs to God and the employer of all those who believe in God. The 10 great evils are eliminated along with the state, and the sanctity of ownership is restored.